Hello and welcome to the lecture on product development. In this lecture, I'll talk a little bit about what a product is, which might seem self-explanatory, but when we get into it, I think you'll see what I'm talking about. I'll conclude by talking about branding, and in between, I'll talk a little bit about innovation, creating products that add value, what a product life cycle is, and a little bit about pricing. So first of all, some definitions. What is a product? A product is, as it says here, a bundle of physical, service, and symbolic characteristics designed to satisfy customers' needs and wants. I mentioned in an earlier lecture that it's really important to focus on the benefits that customers derive from a product, not the features that a company puts into that product. Again, focus on it from the customer's perspective. And again, any successful product is going to satisfy needs or solve problems that customers have. So one nice quote that is shown here is customers don't buy drill bits, they want holes. So it's focusing again on the benefit to the customer. Some of the different concepts that fall under this is package design. You want to have enough packaging to protect the product, but not so much that it's wasteful either from an expense standpoint or environmental standpoint. The brand name, I'll talk more about that later, but that's all of the images and ideas that stand behind your product. You want somebody to hear your company name and immediately have positive thoughts about that. I'll talk about trademarks later as well. That's the symbol that a company uses to represent itself or its products. Warranties can often convey images about quality. So if a company puts a long warranty, for example, I don't know if it's Kia or Hyundai, two Korean car companies, were the first to come out with a 200,000 mile warranty. And again, that was something that was very groundbreaking at the time, and it was meant to convey that their products were high quality. Who would stand behind a car for 20 years if it wasn't high quality? That gets into product image, what people think about when they think about the product. We'll talk quite a bit about new product development in this lecture, and then customer service and product positioning. So product positioning deals with the perceptions that customers have about a product, not necessarily what the truth is, but what their perceptions are. One thing to do is to do a positioning map. And in this one here, this is a positioning map that I did when I started a company making outdoor fitness equipment here in the US. The company's name was Norwell. You'll see it in the upper right box there. It's a company based in Denmark, and I started marketing the products in North America. So I wanted to see what the market for outdoor fitness equipment, like in parks, is in North America. So I looked at all the different companies there. I think there are 10 or 11 companies that were in that business. And I looked at it from the perspective of what is the customer's perception of quality, from low quality to high quality along the x-axis, and then what is the price of the product from low price to high price. So for all of these companies with regard to price, I made a basket, in a sense, of the 5 products, sit-up, bench, pull-up bar, etc., that all of those companies sold. So if I bought one of each of those 5 from each company, what would the price be? That was very objective. So I could place them on the vertical axis quite easily. The x-axis, I had to look at their product specifications. So what kind of coatings did they use? What grade of metal did they use? What type of bearings did they use? All of those types of things. And then I had to ask some people that were familiar with this industry what their perceptions were about the quality of the different companies. I did this before I started this company because I wanted to find out if there was a place in the product mix for my company. And what you'll usually find when you do this, you could do this in virtually any industry, is that you're going to get a cluster of companies in the lower left and a cluster of companies in the upper right. Think of the lower left as being the dollar store, kind of bang for your buck, value oriented, and the upper right being Nordstrom's. So high price, high quality, that sort of thing. Generally, you're not going to have products that are low quality and high price. That wouldn't work. And it's very rare to see a low price with high quality because that's very, very hard to do. So that's why you get the lower left and the upper right. So you can see here that I felt that my company, Norwell, was objectively the highest quality, but not the highest price. So that told me that there was kind of a gap in the market where my product could find some success. So again, this is a good thing to do as objectively as possible to, one, look for gaps, and then second, make sure that your company isn't an outlier, that you're not high price and medium quality as an example. So products and services, a product line, these are terms that are used by companies. So a product line is a group of related products. Maybe I sell weed eaters, and my product line of weed eaters contains corded weed eaters, gas weed eaters, and cordless weed eaters, so battery powered weed eaters. That's a product line of weed eaters. A product mix is an assortment of product lines. So my overall product mix might contain that weed eater product line, but it might also contain lawnmowers and leaf blowers and hedge trimmers, other kinds of product lines that fill out my whole basket of products. Companies will group their products in different ways, usually associated with who they want to market to and how they want to market. All of these products here are made by Pepsi or Pepsi's subsidiaries. All of them are owned by that company. The bottom one is the group that they call good for you. Those are their healthier alternatives. You see Quaker oats there and oatmeal squares and cranberry juice and things like that, bottled water. Those are all things that are meant to be healthy. The middle one is better for you, so it's a little bit healthier in a sense. And then the top one is fun for you. Those are products that they're not trying to be healthy, they're just trying to be tasty or that sort of thing. Hard to describe snacks as fun, but that's what Pepsi does. So they will group those products that way so that they can market them in a similar way to similar kinds of consumers that are looking for those kinds of products. Another way of looking at products in a company's mix is looking at the product life cycle. So there are products that are just introduced. This picture from the book is fairly dated here. Of course, the Prius isn't a brand new car just being introduced. Maybe the new electric Ford F-150 would be an example there where it's just being introduced right now. And in that area, you need to really get the word out and explain to people, try to get people's attention about the product. So very attention grabbing kind of marketing. Not a lot of people. You'll get early adopters, people that like being the first on their block to have a new product, people that used to wait in line to get the new iPhone, that sort of thing. You're appealing to those kinds of people. Not a lot of sales, not a lot of market share. The next one is early growth. So that's when you have more people trying to say, yeah, this is a good product. I really want this kind of a thing. And there you're just trying to grow your momentum and kind of keep things going. Once a product reaches maturity, that's when most of the people who have it, who want it, already have it. And there you're trying to differentiate. Now you've got more competitors, there are more options for that kind of product. So now your marketing is about trying to explain to people why among all the options you're the best. So you do comparative advertising, that sort of thing. And then eventually it gets into the decline. I bought a DVD player for $25 in an impulse rack at a checkout stand at Target about 5 years ago. So eventually it becomes where nobody really wants it and you're just selling it on price alone. In that case, you're just trying to remind people that, hey, I'm still around. Hey, this might be something you still could use. So the product development process in a company is kind of like a funnel that's depicted here. So you start out with a lot of ideas, and you get ideas for new products from customers, from salespeople in the field, from things your competitors are doing, from other related industries. Oftentimes good ideas can come from there, and then also from within the company. And that first process is weeding out. It's saying which of these ideas here doesn't really fit with our company. For example, I had a company that manufactured playground equipment. If somebody in my company came up with an idea of some electronic device that would help children in schoolrooms, well, that's not a good fit for what we do. It isn't part of our expertise. It's not part of who we are. So weed out products that don't really fit with your company. Those are ideas for other people. So that's a weeding out. The next one is creating prototypes, so making some initial versions of the product, kind of a handmade kind of a product that you can show to customers, get their reaction, kind of do some early exploration, try to determine based on that initial reaction if there really is a market for it, and if it's something people would want, what might they pay for it, could it be a profitable business or not. Some ideas will make it through that phase, some will kind of go by the wayside. The next one is doing actual testing, making sure that the product works, that it's safe, that it meets all of the regulatory requirements, figuring out how you'll actually make the product, what will you buy from suppliers, what will you do yourself, how will you package it and ship it, all of those kinds of things. And then the very bottom there is test marketing. So it's not always done for all products, but for big launches, it's often done for big products where they'll find a small area that is representative of the entire country, and they'll test market it there, run some ads there, see how it actually works, and then they have the final rollout where they launch the product, let everyone know about it. So only a few ideas are going to make it to the very bottom of that funnel, even though you start with a lot. So I'll give you an example from my company that kind of shows this process. So in 2004, when I bought my company, one of the things that my company lacked compared with my competitors and what customers were asking for were dynamic products. So products on playgrounds that involve movement. So I worked together with an outside designer that I had had some history with, and I told him I wanted some ideas for products that involved child initiated motion, so things that moved on a playground versus like a static monkey bars or something. I wanted it to involve cooperative play, so I wanted it to be something that kids had to work together to have fun, not a solitary kind of play activity. And I wanted it to kind of be attention grabbing, like somebody driving by a playground would happen to notice it and kind of generate a little buzz. And then lastly, I wanted it to be something that we could patent, that we could have exclusive to our company and not have our competitors have. So the designer I worked with came back with about 10 or 11 ideas, most of which we felt were impossible to make or would be unsafe or that sort of thing. But one of the ideas he had was for kind of a new version of a seesaw. So I don't know if you remember the old seesaws, kind of a plank and a fulcrum, and there were all kinds of safety issues associated with them. So he was trying to figure out a new way to make that. So he gave us these two sketches that were intriguing to us. The concern we had about both of these is that the mechanisms that created the motion, especially the one on the left there, involved parts that would be underground, in effect would be buried in concrete. So if any of those parts failed, it would be very expensive to replace them or fix them. So that was our main concern here. So we gave that feedback to John and to the designer we worked with, and he came back with a example here that you see the drawing on the left where all of the components were above ground, so it fastened to metal footings that were in concrete, and then all the moving parts were internal on there. We built a prototype, which you see on the right there, out of PVC tubing and bent metal pipe and springs and things like that. And I have to confess that we would use employees' children as guinea pigs. They would come in and play on it and tell us what they thought. We would not tell them how to use it, let them figure it out and kind of see what they did and what issues there might be. So it's really important here to focus on, many times in companies you have different groups that you have to satisfy. In our particular company, we had a group of users, children, that needed to find it fun and get some benefit from it. but we also had the people that were actually writing the checks, people like school principals, PTA presidents, park directors, and we needed to get their feedback too, because they were the ones that would actually be placing the order for the equipment. The children wouldn't do that. So we brought those people in as well, and we did multiple iterations of getting feedback from children, getting feedback from decision makers, and also bringing our suppliers in to talk about how we might make this component. So the next step, once we had a design that worked well, was to do all of the safety standard issues. So making sure that there were no head entrapments, that the height met the requirement for monkey bars, that the angles were met the requirements for seesaws, all of that. So we had to do all the technical kind of work to make sure it passed. And we did engineering tests, so we put weight on it and made it do 1 million cycles to see that nothing would wear out. And then we did a couple of other things. We figured out how we would break it down and package it in wooden crates, so how we'd get it around the world. We had a naming contest. We couldn't on our own come up with a good product name for it, so we let children suggest the name for the product. So we sent these posters to hundreds of elementary schools around the country, and kids would come up with what the name they thought it should be, and we narrowed that down and ended up selecting the name Rockin' Cross. And it was a name suggested by a first grade girl in northern Maine, and so her school won a free one. That was a kind of a neat way to introduce the product and get people excited about it. And then we started developing our marketing message. This was a half-page flyer that we could send out to PTA presidents and school principals and that sort of thing. So in the end, it was a very successful product. We sold about $2 million worth of this one single product over the first 2 years after having launched it. So it was a very, very successful product for our little company. The last thing I want to talk about is branding. So a brand, as it says here, a name, symbol, design, or some combination that identifies a product of one firm and differentiates it from another. So a brand name is part of the brand consisting of words. So you could have the symbol for Apple, the apple with a bite out of it. That's the brand. The brand name, of course, is Apple. And a trademark then is legal protection that you get from the federal government if you apply for it and spend the money, that keeps other people from being able to use that same brand name for their products. So it avoids confusion in the marketplace. So here's 4 different brands that are associated with automobiles, and if you think about it, each one of those symbols means something different to you. You have perceptions and thoughts and images in your mind when you look at each of those symbols, and that's a product of lots of marketing that has been done, lots of communication that's been done directed at you, so that you develop those kinds of thoughts about that symbol in an intentional way on part of the company. So things that companies strive for when working on branding, and that can consist of all of the activities that a company does to convey information to you about who they are and what their products are about. One is brand recognition. So somebody, you see it and you know what it is. It's not something unknown to you. So you have awareness of it, but it's not really driving you buying or not buying the product. Brand preference is, if it's available, I'll pick that, but if it's not available, I'll pick something different. I don't insist upon it. Brand insistence is something that a lot of companies strive for, which is that you'll only accept that brand. So if I can't get a drink from Starbucks, then I'm not going to get a coffee drink at all. I'll only drink that, as an example. That's not true, but that's just an example of that. And then brand equity is the added value that a respected brand gives to the product. So it kind of lifts the product up and supports it. So the value can be very substantial. This is a recent ranking of the value that's associated with each of these companies' brands that has accumulated over years and years and years. And you can see it's probably not a surprise that Coca-Cola is the #1 brand across the world. You can find it in all kinds of countries, places where English isn't spoken. That's an immediately recognizable brand. One that I know McDonald's is down there, the Golden Arches. I think I've seen children that can't even speak yet recognize what McDonald's is based on the Golden Arches, so that's obviously very effective as well. So that's the end of the lecture on product development. I look forward to talking to you at the next lecture. Thank you.